Welcome to the Suitcase and the Scribe with award-winning journalist Scott Burnside and former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna, a member of the Nation Network of podcasts and delivered by DoorDash.
Hey everybody, Scott Burnside back again for this week's edition of the Suitcase and the Scribe. Mike McKenna, I'm starting to. I live vicariously through you, Mike, because you're out, you're doing things in the world. That save on Eric Lindros in the alumni game in Philadelphia, honestly, if you're listening to this right now and you haven't seen it, go and Google it or look on Twitter. It's outstanding. How was the event? This is 2 weeks in a row. You've been out and doing really cool things as a goaltender, and it looked like a ton of fun in Philadelphia.
Yeah, ironically, in Philadelphia, both times. What was not shown very often was the goals that I allowed. I'm not as flexible as I used to be. I can't seal the ice. I can't seal the posts like I once was able to. But yeah, I think the best clip I had was the save on Lindros where, puck goes side to side, comes back to the middle. It's a 3-on-1 and I overcommit, have to push back and get a blocker on it. And, in the moment, you don't really realize who you're facing when it comes off the blade because it's bang, bang, and then make the save and look up and go, all right, that was Eric Lindros. And for me as a kid growing up, Lindros, Leclerc, some of these guys that I've never had a chance to meet them. I only got to watch them in their prime, never played against them. It's still a huge thrill, to share the locker room and share an event with these legendary names of the game. I mean, Rick Tocchet was inducted into the Flyers Hall of Fame along with Paul Holmgren. Fantastic occasion for both of them. And I got to play for Toc in Tampa Bay and have seen him since and watched him go on to be a head coach again with Arizona. And it's fun to catch up with him. But I was also coached by Iron Mike Keenan. And I got pulled by Mike Keenan. So it's like a badge of honor. Yes. But, it's all in fun. The cool part is that one of the Flyers Warrior goaltenders, Bill Duffy, got a chance to play in the game. Good. And so he went in for the last 10 minutes. We changed on the fly, got pulled by Iron Mike. He took me out of the game. And the cool part about that, Scott, is that we're both St. Lawrence graduates, Mike Keenan and myself. He's a 72 graduate of St. Lawrence University. I am an 05. And sure enough, here we are sharing stories about the college days and the TikTok Inn and the Hoot Owl and Sergi's Pizza. And man, it was just a really super awesome event. I was okay on the ice. I wish I'd made more saves.
Isn't that the goaltender's constant lament, though? I wish. In fact, we had Ryan Miller on a couple of weeks. I didn't mention it because it didn't really seem to fit, but it was, after the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, and Ryan Miller was, he was the tournament, and whether he was tournament MVP, but certainly the all-star goalie from the tournament. And Mike Lemieux, who's his agent, and he mentioned that, sent out, and I don't know who he sent it to, but one arrived in my mailbox. He sent a signed puck with a letter from that had Ryan's signature on it. And basically it was, thanks for your coverage. And and the last line, or one of the lines was, I just wish I'd made one more stop. There's, gives up the golden goal to Sidney Crosby, but that was his lament.
That's how it always is.
It's forever, right?
Yeah.
I wish I'd made one more stop.
That's how it works for us. I mean, I'm looking back, I can replay the 6 goals I allowed in my head. And, Scotty Upshaw's flying around like it's 2007 out there, he's ripping. He has a hat trick before you know it. I mean, he went bar down from the slot with a screen in front in an alumni game. I kind of was like, wow, we got to play. I mean, but you can't take the competitive fight out of not just goalies, anybody. I mean, Brad Marsh and Todd Fedoruk went up and down the ice, two-handing each other, really two-handing each other.
Yeah. No.
And it's, man, you can't take it out of us. And, we come in between the second and the third, Donald Brashear's, all right, boys, let's go. And you could sense that he's having fun with it.
Yeah.
But he also really kind of means it because we're down a couple goals. You just want to win. And that's how goalies are wired. If you can't perform up to your standards, and your standard's a shutout. That's your standard. And even in a shutout, you think, wow, I got away with 1 or 2 there. So it's just how we're wired. But what a fun event, man. I was flattered that they asked me, frankly. I'm a guy who played 1 game for the Flyers, and I understand that goalies are in need for these games.
Yeah.
But just, man, the Flyers do things right with their alumni. They really do. And there's other teams around the league that are known for it, but I think they set the gold standard, Scott. It was a great weekend. Tons of fun to be.
Good stuff. And I'm gonna shift gears, and we're gonna talk some more goalies and Hall of Fame and stuff. But when you talk about that competitiveness, I covered an outdoor game in Denver at Coors Field. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, several employers ago, and but it was what I happened to be at the alumni game between the Avs and the Red Wings. And that the Avs and Red Wings were playing the real game. But the day before, there was an alumni game between the Avs and the Red Wings. And honestly, I thought they might have to, I don't know what they were going to do, but things got pretty heated on the ice. I think whether it was Chris Simon. Anyway, in the press box, people were looking at each other going, oh my God, this is going to be a legitimate brawl.
Right.
And
is this going to happen?
It was going to happen. So I totally get it. It's great. Good stuff.
Yeah.
The one thing that I miss, it's been a number of years since I've been at Hall of Fame. And of course, they didn't have a Hall of Fame ceremony a year ago because of the pandemic, and so great to even, at a distance, follow what was going on and the inductees. And I covered it every year for many years, and just such a great gathering of hockey people, right? It's a great weekend. Yeah. Everyone's in a great mood, and they do all kinds of great stuff around there. And so I've missed going. But I know you've sort of addressed this on social media and it's come up. I was amazed at how, basically, I get there's only, there's one goalie, 5 skaters on the ice. So maybe the numbers, shouldn't be that surprising. But I went back and I looked. I think since 1993, Billy Smith went in 1993. Look at me, fancy stats guy.
But which, by the way, Billy Smith, 93 exclamation point.
I know. So
he won 4 Stanley Cups.
So since Billy Smith went in, and okay, you're getting mad already. I know this. Since 1993, 7 goaltenders have gone in. And I did a rough count this morning of the number of players, and that's men and women, since women have been started being inducted a number of years ago. But anyway, 86 players. We're not talking build. 86 players have gone in the Hall of Fame since 93. 7 goaltenders. That doesn't seem right to me. That doesn't seem right.
Not for a position that's considered to be absolutely essential to winning hockey games and Stanley Cups. And every single GM or president will tell you that goalies get coaches and general managers fired.
Yes.
Okay. But it's impossible to correlate why this is happening on a surface level, because you have so many people that really should be in the Hall of Fame by the metrics that people talk about. Yeah. You need Stanley Cups. Okay. Well, here's Tom Barrasso, who was Rookie of the Year and won a Vezina rookie season in Buffalo in '84, won 2 Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins, he played over 700 games, and he's sitting top 20 in wins in the league. Okay, why is he not in? Then you go to Mike Vernon, who won a Stanley Cup in Calgary, a Stanley Cup in Detroit, 5-time All-Star, and a guy who, again, he's sitting in the top, I think he's 16th in wins. Like, these guys aren't in the Hall. And I'm just going to give some comparables here. Okay. And this is not to take anything away from these individuals, but I want to have the comparables. Marian Hossa is 57th all time in NHL scoring in an era where players can play 20 years, and he's immediately in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And we're talking about his defensive play. Okay. Yeah, all right. And you're telling me that Mike Vernon, 16th in wins, 5 All-Star games, 2 Stanley Cups isn't in there. Tom Barrasso,
Curtis Joseph.
Curtis Joseph's 4th in wins all time. He played for some terrible teams that he carried the mail on. It's so dedicated to winning, and it's either wins or cups. Like, those are really your metrics as goalies. Sadly, that's the way it works. Yeah. And I can't fathom that. Like, if you're top 20 in goalie wins, you should probably be in the Hall of Fame. Like, that should kind of be what we're looking at here.
The bar is. Yeah.
Yeah. If that's what we're going to base it off of. Chris Osgood, 2 Stanley Cups, 401 wins. Just go down the list, man. There's a lot of guys there. Andy Moak's probably in the conversation. Yep. Jonathan Quick's going to finish his career maybe outside the top 20, but to me, he's a Hall of Famer. Conn Smythe winner, 2 Stanley Cups, face of USA Hockey as a goaltender, like 100%.
Yeah. What about Tim Thomas?
No, I don't think Timmy's going to. I think the reason being is for the one magical season and a couple of great seasons that he had in Boston, it wasn't sustained long enough.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I do believe that you have to have, it's got to have longevity to your career. Yeah. That's real. But here's why I think things go sideways with the Hall is that, one, they only have John Davidson. Let me go back and say John Davidson to give respect to his name. He's the only guy that was a goalie in the voting committee that I can see, that I can think of. Yeah. You have one advocate and you got a bunch of people that just don't understand the position. Okay. Straight up, like you may act like you do, but they don't. And again, for all the value placed on it, it's just easier to say, oh, we can't put him in. He wasn't good enough. And the reason being is because sustained success as a goaltender just doesn't exist because it's so predicated upon the team in front of you. Yeah. And you may have a couple down years, or you may finish your career on a low note and you don't end up in the Hall because of that. And that's ridiculous to think. And it's not just goalies, Scott. I got one example I'm going to give you for forward. And I know I'm ranting here and I'm taking the ball and I'm running with it here, Scotty. Can we talk about the fact that we're inducting Kevin Lowe goes in. Okay, I can buy that. I get it. But how is Alexander Mogilney not in the Hall of Fame? This is the one that year in, year out sticks out to me and I can't fathom it, like he's the first to defect from Russia, which is monumental in the first place to come over and play. He'd already won a gold medal. I mean, this is the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's not just the NHL. He'd already won a gold medal. Yep. He played 3 seasons in Russia, lit it up in Russia before he came to North America. So take those point totals and add them to his NHL totals. Over 1,000 points in 900 something games, over a point a game his whole career, won a Stanley Cup with the New Jersey Devils.
Yep.
He's not in the Hall of Fame. Is it because Lou flushed his contract at the end of the career and he finished with the Albany River Rats? Yeah. Like I played against him in the American Hockey League. Do you know what it's like to skate out in the American Hockey League your first year and see Alexander Mogilney coming down to you? Oh, I'm perplexed. Scott, do you have an answer why Mogilney's not in the Hall?
I do know that the Hall, and having talked to people who are on the selection committee, it's a kind of an archaic, weird system, and there has been some turnover. And I really, I think that the Hall has done a nice job in recent years, again, because there's been some turnover, and I think they are a little bit more forward thinking. I love the idea that women are now as they
absolutely
consideration.
Kim St. Pierre goes in, goaltender.
There you go.
There's a goalie union member right there. Fantastic. Absolutely right. Deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
I don't, it is and I think probably you've touched on it. The fact that if you aren't a goalie or don't have a real strong connection to goalie, maybe you don't understand, or, maybe I don't know. It's weird that there are goalies that haven't made the grade, and there are players. And again, I always hate having these discussions because it sounds like you're slagging somebody. We're not slagging Marian Hossa.
No, these are great hockey players.
But it's a great debate to have because it's the Hall of Fame, and the bar should be so high.
Yeah.
So this will allow me a segue into our next topic. But Roberto Luongo, my sense is, there you go.
He better be in next year.
Okay.
Third all time in goalie wins?
I think third. Yeah, I should have called it up, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fourth. I apologize because Marc-Andre Fleury surpassed him last season.
Okay.
But yeah, Roberto Luongo played over 1,000 games in the NHL. I mean, he never won a Stanley Cup.
No.
Great. Okay. He played for the Florida Panthers for half his career. When the Panthers didn't have Scott Mellenby shooting rats off of walls in the locker room. Okay. These were the tough years for the Panthers.
Yep.
And he goes to Vancouver and he gets that team to the finals.
Yep.
But people will make excuses why he should be in. He let in a bad goal in this game. You know what? He won a gold medal, but he wasn't. He almost lost that gold medel.
It's true.
Shut up.
I was at the game. You almost lost it to Slovakia in the semifinals.
Not telling you to shut up, Scott. I'm just like, my brain wants to tell people, shut up. This guy is one of the greatest to ever play the game. If you're going on greatness, Roberto Luongo was one of the greatest goalies to ever play. Statistically, wins, playoff success, even without the cup, Olympics, like he should be in next year. All period. Right. End of story.
Okay. So that's it. It allows me the great segue then. I don't think it's a stretch, but you mentioned the Vancouver Canucks. Of course, it's a team that he took to a Stanley Cup final in 2011, epic 7-game series. I got to tell you, that series still stands out as one of my favorite final series to cover. And the hockey stunk. The games themselves were crap. And I remember like yesterday, but they start in Vancouver and the Canucks choke the life out of the Bruins, win 2 games. I remember going back to Boston for games 3 and 4 and planning when I could get home to Atlanta, because I was like, no chance Boston wins a game. Of course, they crushed the Canucks twice. Go back to Vancouver. I believe it was an overtime game in Game 5, and they lose. I'm like, it is over. Yeah. No,
things are on fire.
Oh the riot, and it's the whole thing. Ugh. But you know what? And it allows us to morph into the sort of the current the discussion of the Vancouver Canucks. And really, since 2011. No, I think it's fair to say 2 years ago in the bubble, the Canucks beat the Blues in a fairly dramatic fashion. It was really exciting, and Pettersson, and I think there was this. Okay, we are finally coming out of it, because since 2011, it's been that team has been in pretty constant, if not decline. Then what are you doing? Where are you going? And oh my gosh, they are a tire fire this year, and I did not see that coming. And just as we're chatting here. Ownership, the Aquilinis met with the GM Jim Benning, understand, we're not like, I don't know what kind of change may be happening. It's probably not going to happen right away, but this is a team that is 32nd on the penalty kill, 26th on the power play, 27th in goals allowed per game. There's no way they should be this bad. No. And that market, I love that market, because they're not alone in this, but Vancouver is its own special marketplace, and they care deeply. And that's an angry place in Vancouver right now. And I wonder if you felt this was coming, or like, what do you do? I think Travis Green, I think Travis Green is an excellent coach. And in fact, at one point 2 years ago, you could sort of, is there a place for him on the Canadian Olympic staff? All those kinds of stuff. And man, it's a mess there. It's a mess in Vancouver. And it's pretty late now for Vancouver already in this season. They're not close to being a playoff team.
No, they're not. And you touched on a lot of the reasons. Special teams is crushing them.
Yeah. And
you're never going to win hockey games at a 60% penalty kill at all. And they've got a hell of a goaltender in Thatcher Demko. That's yet again, we got a goalie being wasted behind a team in front of him. Jakob Markstrom, same thing, out the door because the team just couldn't. He carried that team. Okay. You want to talk about a season where they actually had some success, when they played well in the bubble, when they went far. I mean, that was Markstrom early and then Demko later.
Yep.
And I don't know, man. Like, I really like Travis Green. I understand the sentiment of him being a good coach, but the track record isn't there.
Yeah.
Like, and man, I don't like to beat up on people, but even in the American League in Utica, his teams were good, but they weren't a threat. They weren't that stocked. Like, he doesn't have the winning record to go along with the perception that we have. And that's just reality. And I don't like that reality, because I root for just about everybody. There's not many people I don't like in this game, but the way the rosters, thank you. And I hope people appreciate that, but like the way the roster is constructed.
Yeah, it's not great.
I had hopes for this team largely on Elias Pettersson, if he was going to be healthy. That was my question. It was like, if he's healthy, I think this team's good. Yeah. Well, he's healthy, but he hasn't done anything this year. He's got 3 goals.
Yeah.
And the power play is abysmal. Like, teams have figured out how to play against them. They haven't been able to morph their power play into something that's dangerous, because they've all clued in on get to Pettersson, force him. You can let Quinn Hughes do what he wants, and he's played well for the team. He's been better actually this year defensively on a team that can't play defense. But Ekman Larson, like, Scotty, I'm always really wary of reclamation projects. Yeah, players that are almost 30 years old, when their play declines somewhere, and you trade for them and you hope that they get their game back, because that's what you're doing. Okay, you're hoping their game comes back. I mean, Ekman Larson's got 3 points in 16 games. That's just not what has to happen. I mean, I don't know what the deal is with Vancouver, honestly. Like Nate Schmidt goes there and it doesn't work at all last year. Now he goes to the Winnipeg Jets and he's back on track.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's, I mean, listen, I spent 2 days in the Vancouver locker room and 3 days. It didn't seem like there was anything off in terms of chemistry there to me, but you start to wonder about all these things. And, you know, the depth's just not there. They're not a fast enough team. There's going to have to be changes there. There has in some capacity. And I don't know where you begin with that, because there's been a lot of turnover within even the roster, but they haven't grabbed it, man. I thought this team would be better than where they are. I thought they'd at least be like, at least in contention for playoffs, and they're nowhere close to that.
Yeah. I don't know what, you know, when we have these discussions, I say this all the time, and, you know, it's easy. Okay. You want to fire Travis Green. Okay. You know, I get it. I understand that sentiment, and there's probably a logical reason to do so, but what's the plan B? I mean, you know, I love Bruce Boudreau. You know, does he get another shot somewhere? His history of picking up teams and certainly in the short term having great success is there. But, you know, what do you have somebody, you know, in where's it, Abbotsford or wherever their AHL team is now?
Yeah, they're in Abbotsford now.
So like again, it's what's the plan? You want to fire Jim Benning. All right. Well, okay. Do you have Jim Rutherford lined up, or is there, who do you bring in? What is the plan? Because it's not just the people, and you alluded to it. I mean, the OEL deal is going to kill them for years. And that was the danger in making that move. I know they unloaded short-term contracts that they shouldn't have made in the first place, you know, whether it was, you know, the whole bottom end, they overloaded there with Russell and Beagle.
Big contracts.
So you unload that, but you still have a long time of pain ahead. And I thought this works because maybe OEL immediately is able to reclaim his confidence. He talked about the lack of confidence, all that kind of stuff in Arizona. I get it. But if it's not happening now, when does it happen? And now you're saddled with maybe, you know, one of the top 2 or 3 worst contracts in the NHL. So I don't know what the answer is.
I don't either. It's a team that's like, if you fire a GM, you go into rebuild mode. They've been in rebuild mode for 7 years, 8 years now.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not many times you can bring in a GM to just go, okay, we're going to do one little tweak and then make this happen. No, you come in guns blazing, arrows firing, and trying to do things your way. But it's stagnant, period. And that's just where they're at right now. I mean, you know, it's tough to watch, frankly. Like, I'd like to see fans in Vancouver get more than that. But you know, we've got other teams in the league that are at least turning the other direction. You know, we were talking before and yesterday about how I was really intrigued to watch Florida play last night. And because to me, this was a team that they'd lost 4 straight games. They lost 2 of them in extra innings out of those 4. So you give them a little caveat, but they were 3-1 after Joe Quenneville went away, after he resigned. And then they lost 4 straight. And you start to wonder, is Andrew Burnett going to remain the head coach of the Florida Panthers if they can't start winning regularly again? This is a team that needed a response badly. And they trounced the Islanders last night 6-1.
I was watching that game. 4 in the first, I think.
And I tell you what, like, they came home to Florida. They've got a big homestand. But I legitimately thought here, Scott, that if the Florida Panthers didn't beat the Islanders last night, and then they didn't beat, I believe they're playing the Devils tomorrow night, I thought you were going to see somebody come in as a head coach in Florida.
Yeah.
I thought 6 straight losses for a team that's in first place in their division with an assistant coach that doesn't have the experience as a head. I thought for sure it was going to happen. This definitely bought some rope, I guess, for Andrew Burnett. And I'm happy about that, because I like to see, you know, guys get a chance and succeed.
Yeah.
But wow, like, Scotty, that was impressive, wasn't it? You know, like, and I think around the league, I mean, you may get this sense. Do you think people around the league are looking at Florida and really going, this team is for real?
And it was, I mean, disappointing and problematic. Of course, Alexander Barkov leaves that game last night. And, you know, clearly, I mean, early MVP, sure, no question. Early Selke, sure, all those things. He's the man there, and so you hope it's not a long-term thing. That I got to tell you though, I love the depth of that team. And I think a different line scored each of the 4 goals in the first period, something like that. But it was a total depth show against the Islanders, and I do really. We talked a little bit about it before when Carolina and Florida played early on a Saturday night, sort of titans of the Eastern Conference. And I think Florida is still very much in that discussion. I still think that Florida, Tampa, Carolina right now are the 3, the obvious cream of the crop in the
Carolina, East. Especially. Yeah. I mean, they just gave it to Vegas last night.
And not. I go, no, it was 4-2 and the Carolina got up 2-0. And then the Knights, Golden Knights tied it. But really Carolina brought it all night.
They did.
That was just,
and
that's how they play.
And by the way, big for them to get Antti Raanta back and win a game. It's
surprised that, here's Freddie Anderson plays every game. Raanta plays one, gets hurt. He's out for a couple of weeks. And then the first game of a 6-game road trip, there's Antti Raanta in there. He was very good. So, and he's such a nice guy. I, as you know, I do some content for the Canes. I was in Carolina and he and I had a long chat. It's been a tough go for him. Had some personal losses over the off season, and then to get hurt in his very first game in like a year or whatever it was. So, but such a nice guy. And there are a lot of Finns on that team, and there is he's already in a very short period of time, I think, an important, I hate that term, glue guy, but that's, I think, what he's becoming there. So
sure. Well, that's a good 1-2 punch. If Antti Raanta is healthy, I mean, I had that tandem ranked really highly.
Yep.
With Freddie Anderson and Raanta, and my only question is Raanta would stay healthy. Yeah. So if he can stay out of the train tracks, it's just like
stay in the
please, Antti, please, Antti. We love watching you play. I love showing your clips to goalies that I coach. Please stay healthy. But man, you're right though. Carolina just, it's pretty special. And you see these clips of Rod Brindamore taking, he's grabbing the luggage off the plane. You know what he's really doing? He's just getting a pump in. He's just working those muscles, making sure he gets
worked out for 4 hours because he was on the flight.
That's all it is. Yeah. But he's built that culture, Scott, and you know how important that is in this game.
Yeah. So I'm curious. We talked about the Islanders, and we talk about teams that have underachieved or whatever. We're getting, when we talk next week, it'll be the day before Thanksgiving, and that's always the line in the sand. So we'll save some of that discussion for then. But I think there is this feeling about the Islanders, who are, I think they're in last place. No, just checking the Metro here. Quick check here. Yes, last place, 2 points behind Pittsburgh, although they played 2 fewer games. But the Islanders are not very good right now, and
they're a long way out of a playoff spot.
They are but this is they've 13 games on the road to start the season. I think, again, to your idea, this notion of culture and what does it mean and how valuable is it? It's hard to quantify sometimes, but if you polled 100 people in the game, how many would say that the Islanders are out of it? And my guess is very, very few. And I think that's the feel, Barry Trotz is who he is. To me, he's the guy that rides out this 13-game road trip. They looked ghastly last night. And actually, let's just check my little notes. Islanders 30th on the power play, 29th on goals per game. So that's not great. No. But to me, I don't know if there's any level of concern, because I think we've now come to expect that at some point Barry Trotz is going to get that team in shape, and they're going into a new home. Obviously, their schedule will be more heavily weighted to home games as we move along. Are you concerned about them, or do you assume that when we come to talk at the Olympic break or after the Olympic break, Owls are going to be right there?
I'm concerned. I think it's getting to be too late, straight up. Like, I've seen this happen before where, you got a new building, you play a quarter of your games on the road to start the year, and you just keep spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
Because you have to rack up points early. Yeah. And I'll reference this again, just because I cover them so often, but like, the Golden Knights have gotten points even despite all the injuries they've had, they've managed to get some points and stay right at that bubble for playoffs.
Yeah.
The Islanders aren't like that, man. Like, they're sitting 7 points out of playoffs right now. They're down a couple games. They have games in hand, but they've gotten good goaltending and they're not scoring.
Yeah.
And I look at
terrible
it's been, 10, 11 days since they've played a quality game.
Yeah.
They've gotten trounced 4 straight. 4 games, they've given up 19 goals in the last 4 games.
Yep.
And I know you can always look at strength of schedule and make excuses for that, but man, there's not many bad teams in hockey. Like, especially like in the East, you don't get to run over Arizona. I know Buffalo's coming back down to earth, but even they've been competitive.
Big win over Pittsburgh last night.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you don't have easy games. The Kraken aren't out there. Like, the Sea Witch isn't there. Like, you just, Jersey beats the Islanders 4, rip, Minnesota 5-2. Like, these are the teams you're going to have to play later.
Yep.
And again, like, they're still getting good goaltending. Sorokin gets chased last night in Florida. Like, I am very concerned about the Islanders. And this is a team I would have never thought I'd be saying that about this season. And because the Barry Trotz factor is so real. Even those teams in Nashville that were really, really thin, not long after expansion, man, if they didn't make the playoffs, they were right at the edge every year. Plucky teams. I do think that being on the road like this can crush a team. It can. And you wonder if that's at play here, because when they come back and they start to play those games at home, man, they better run some teams out of the building and get some confidence. Like, you can't tread water. They're going to have to bring it, because 4 straight losses here. Like, it's got to start. It needed to start yesterday. It's got to start next game.
Well, and I wonder now if, and maybe that's how, I was watching part of that game last night as well. And this notion that, maybe it's been, like, it's not like they went home, right? They didn't play all 13 games in a row. So it's not like they haven't been home, but I wonder if you've been, if you're the Islanders, you're looking at the end of that. Okay, yes, we're getting closer and closer. We're going to go to our new building. We're going to, that's, something they've been looking forward to. And maybe that explains some of the, because that was an ugly performance last night. But to your point, Mike, they have to jump on it right away, because I wonder what the psychology is. Like, what if they, if they go 1-1-1 in their first 3 games, now all of a sudden you're like, geez, maybe we're not that good, or whatever it is. But I'm with you. They have to take advantage of the new home and having those fans that will be, it's one of the great fan bases in the NHL.
Oh, 100%.
But they got to take advantage.
They got to ride that wave. Like, they have to. Like, they've got to win that first game at home. If they don't, I'll say, I will make this prediction, Scott.
All right.
Let's mark this down in our notes.
I'm taking a note.
If the New York Islanders do not win their first game in their new building, that I apologize for not having the naming rights to memorized in my head right now.
Yes.
They will not make playoffs.
Okay.
That is my prediction. I will owe you 1 glass of red wine if that does not happen. 1 glass.
As long as can I choose the size? That's just my question.
You can choose the size. You can choose the vintage. So you could really get me with that one, Scotty.
Right. Good stuff.
So
I've made a note.
Yep, you got it written down. Perfect.
Yep. And you know what? Again, it's always nice to work with a pro. But what a perfect segue to our tiny break and our weekly mention of DoorDash. DoorDash is the proud sponsor of the Nation Network of Podcasts. Restaurants and more delivered right to your door. I always put the pressure on you, but I always love to hear your DoorDash stories. But maybe with your travel, you haven't had a DoorDash tale to tell us this week.
Well, I don't, but I could tell you what, Mrs. McKenna and the kids do, because when I'm gone, they take full advantage of the dash. And I went to one of our favorite Thai restaurants, Mane Thai, just down the road. Had some nice chicken satay ordered up and a little Thai rama. Kids sure love that with the peanut sauce. Oof, so good. So
I don't like
DoorDash.
I'm going to throw that right in. Don't like
what?
I don't like the peanut stuff. I don't like this.
I love
noodles.
it. The sweet, the sour, the tamarind, the cilantro, the fish sauce. Oh, it's just delicious. But yeah, so DoorDash always comes to the rescue when I'm out of town. So thank you, DoorDash.
Yes, good stuff. Couple of things. We're rolling right along. You know what? We talked a little bit about the Olympics last week, and this is they're interconnected. I'm curious whether you were surprised that the NHL finally stepped in and postponed, I think, 3 Senators games to start with. I think they were up to 10 players in COVID-19 protocols. I do wonder, there have been lots of teams that have had to deal with, breakthrough cases. San Jose's, gutted out a number of games with missing 5 and 6 guys. The Blues, lots.
Blues have been crushed by it. Yeah.
Colorado's had a tough time with it. But anyway, the league did the postponement for the first time this season, 3 Senators games. Were you surprised by it? And, are you worried? Is this a domino type thing, or do you believe that this might be one of those isolated things, and this will be as bad as it gets in terms of that kind of postponement issue?
I'm nervous. I wouldn't say I'm worried yet, but I'm a little nervous here. Okay. Because I think that, it's funny though, at the start of the year, we both said, I think we get this year off, no problem. I think we've got a good enough handle on it. But the
vaccination rate was incredible.
Well, and that's what I think some of us all got lulled into a sense of security in that it really isn't breakthrough cases. Like, you can still transmit and contract Corona-19 despite being vaccinated. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, but the science is showing it's keeping people out of hospitals and it's keeping them healthier if they get it. Okay. So take that for what it is. You can still get it. And we're seeing that the spread is still happening. Yeah. And I mean, the Ottawa case, 7-8 players out, they're calling everybody up from the minors. They're still playing. I appreciate what the league did here. Thinking we got to try to get these games in the best we can, because they don't want to have to use the Olympic break for games. They want to play in the Olympics. I know that I know the owners probably really don't, and GMs really don't want their players going there, but man, it's important to the players and it's important to the world and the hockey fans in the world. I think that is understood. Yeah. So, but now we've opened Pandora's box. Yeah, no, it's, they have delayed games, and we're now going to get to that critical threshold where if there's 3 or 4 teams that end up having to do this, Scott, I think we're in real trouble with the Olympics. Yeah. Well, and we're not far from that. Like, I mean, you look at that situation with San Jose, like, you only needed a couple more guys to pop a positive, and you're looking at delaying games in the same way. I do think that with Ottawa, you get to 10 people.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. But here's the thing. It's not just worried about spread to other teams. Yeah. There's more to this. I mean, there's competitive advantage. You're thinking, we're not going to be any good. Like, Ottawa's already in the doldrums. They haven't hit stride like people thought. They don't have any supporting cast. I mean, and they have such a low payroll. I wonder if it's for them. Like, they're begging the league to postpone games. 1, competitive, but 2, like, they're suddenly spending $6 or $7 million more than what their internal budget is. Okay. Yeah. And listen, I'm just projecting, I'm guessing here, but that's real. Like, you've just been crushed as an owner for 2 years with COVID, not having any revenue. And now you're spending way over what you expected anyway. Like, I know this is supposed to be the period of unparalleled greatness and success in Ottawa, but that's not the case right now. Yeah, no. And so, Scotty, I'm nervous, man. What's your feeling on it? What are you hearing inside the league here?
Well, it was interesting. I was watching our pals, Chris Johnson and Darren Dreger and Pierre LeBrun on the Insider Trading. And now Chris Johnson mentioned that quietly, not quietly, but my sense is that the teams are encouraging players to get the booster shot, when and where it's available. I mean, I'll share. I get a schedule Sunday, get my booster shot. So here in Georgia. And so my sense is that the more players that can, as quickly as possible, was given their local health regulations, all that kind of stuff. I think in the US, it's going to be wide open within a matter of days, and certainly a week or so. It sounds like, from the FDA to get the booster shot. That will go a long way, I think, at least hopefully, in terms of, tamping these outbreaks down. But to your point about the Olympics, and I know Frank, our main man, Frank Cervelli, retweeted a story and earlier in the season talking to Bill Daly, deputy commissioner, about, what triggers the NHL's opt-out of the Beijing Olympics in February of 2022 is very vague. It's very vague. Now, we do know that it's, I'm just looking at make sure I have it right here, January 10th is the opt-out date. So, and the fact that they've now postponed games, that is the first domino. And there isn't a finite, if we have to postpone X number of games, we exercise this right to withdraw from the tournament. It's very loose. I'm with you. I hope that there's a lot of open dialogue with the NHLPA. I mean, listen, if we get to a point where 4 or 5 teams, like what we saw last year, if we get to that point, I totally get it. Yeah. I hope that the owners are not going to use trying to leverage this into pulling the pin on something that most of them don't want to be at to begin with.
Yeah, it's real. But I think it goes both ways. Like, I mean, I think the teams don't want a competitive disadvantage. The owners don't want to potentially risk their players. They didn't want them to go to the Olympics in the first place. They're traveling overseas. You're risking injury. Of course, everybody doesn't want their asset to be lost midway through a season. And let's face it, some of the better teams are going to lose more players than other teams to the Olympics. And I shouldn't say lose. They will have more players going to the Olympics and playing more hockey. Absolutely. I mean, look at the Florida Panthers. They may have 3 centermen on Team Finland from just the Florida Panthers alone. Basically, the center position could be from the Florida Panthers. And so I get that, but like, you guys agreed to it. You got to make this happen in the CBA. Like, and you even look back at that article that Frank retweeted just recently at some of the quotes, even Patrick Kane saying, like, it feels like we're kind of going, maybe we're going.
Yeah.
And uncertainty isn't a good feeling.
No. Yeah. I don't know. I'm with you. I'm in between worried and concerned. Is that on the spectrum?
I don't know where that fits. I'm not sure the proper word for it.
Yeah, but
I feel like it's one of those things where like you mash up 2 names like Benifer or something. Like we've got to create a word to describe our feeling. Yeah.
Anyway, I hope it works out. So about ownership, I love this, right? We just got the natural
We're flowing, dude. Love it.
Ownership. A huge story. I believe this is the Wall Street Journal that first broke it. And I think you have a really good sense of what's going on with the Fenway Sports Group, owner of the Red Sox, of course, in Boston, racing team, which I know you're really connected with. Seems to be fairly far down the road with discussions to purchase the Pittsburgh Penguins. Lots of discussion about what that would mean, specifically for Mario Lemieux, who not just owned the team, but basically saved it twice. He's like iconic. I
saved it on the ice and saved it off the ice.
Exactly. But well said. What would his role be? I don't think the suggestion is he's going anywhere, but something like this happens. It's a massive change in dynamic. Basically it's been Ron Burkle and Mario Lemieux for years. And this would be a much different dynamic. And so there's lots of discussion about that. Were you surprised by it? And do you have any level of concern or what it might mean if this happens, and it could happen very quickly?
I'm not terribly surprised because I'd heard the Pens have been on the block, honestly, for a while. Yeah. And I think generally when you hear a team's up for sale, you pump the brakes. What's going on here? What's wrong? Why do they want to get rid of it? And I don't have any inside knowledge into this at all, but it's not always easy to be an owner. You got a lot on your plate. And I mean, for Burkle and Mario Lemieux, maybe they're just cashing out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just that simple. I mean, they bought the team for, I don't have the sale price or what they bought this club for years ago, but I can guarantee it's not the $500 or $600 million or $700 million that they're going to get out of this at this point. You know what I mean? Like the return on interest is pretty awesome. It's a
good cash. It's a good cash payment for them.
I mean, dude, Mario made cake when he played, but look at this deal now, man. Like you can ride that. You can eat fillet mignon on the whatever jet you want to buy the rest of your life with this. But I think it just might take the pressure off. Like there's no way Mario Lemieux is not going to still be involved with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah. There's just none. Like he is Mr. Pittsburgh Penguin. And I believe that Roush Fenway. Here I go into the racing talk, Scott. Everybody sees the Red Sox owners, Fenway, the Fenway Group, whatever they call their name is. Yes, thank you. The Red Sox, obviously, massive property, $1 billion property, but they also do have money in NASCAR with Roush Fenway Racing that is now becoming RFK Racing with the addition of Brad Keselowski as a driver owner. Listen, NASCAR is big money. I know people may not see that within our realm in hockey as much because we're stick and ball oriented, but it's a pretty diverse group of holdings with the Fenway Group. And they've they've got their ducks in a row, man. Like this is a legit entity. You know, this isn't like some day trader who just made a bunch of money in a hedge fund going, hey, I want to play in the pool of billionaires. Let's go, man. This is the private club. Like these are people that are probably going to take care of this team the right way, I think. And you see a property that's still really strong. Like Pittsburgh is still a really strong property. So I don't see this as a negative. To me, I'm guessing it's a cash out. I hope that's the way.
Yeah.
And I hope hockey, you know, it's not going anywhere in Pittsburgh, Scott, but it is interesting though. The timing of it's kind of surprising.
Well, that's what I wonder. And here's my, I'm going to tell the Mario Lemieux story when I get down here. But the one thing that I'm curious about, you know, vis-a-vis the timing, and maybe listen, it was always going to be an issue for the Penguins, especially with Ron Hextall taking over a year ago when Jimmy Rutherford stepped away and Brian Burke coming in. And the reality has always been there that, you know, you got Chris Letang, who's in a contract year, you know, iconic player on that team, borderline Hall of Famer in my mind, a surefire Hall of Famer in Evgeny Malkin, who hasn't played at all this year, but also in a contract year. You know, it's a team that has continuously swung for the fences based on their collection of superstars. I totally get that. But at some point, there was going to be a day of reckoning. And I just wonder, you know, is there, with new ownership coming in, does it signal an ownership group who has no ties? I mean, Mario stays there, but the big money comes from the new group. And do they look at it and with a much more clinical look at, no, we don't have room for Chris Letang. No, we don't have room for Evgeny Malkin. We're going to go into a period where we need to collect assets, picks, prospects, and this is how we're going to operate things. And I, like, who knows? But Penguins right now, they're much like the Islanders. I think the Penguins prospects are even more bleak than the Islanders in terms of getting back into the playoffs. Just given, you know, again, some of the injuries, and they're just, I don't know where they're at. So I just wonder if the timing this is going to be the start of the long anticipated closing of the window in Pittsburgh.
Could be. I mean, we'll see how it plays, right? I mean, it's going to be tough to look at Evgeny Malkin, who's still a mega producer in this league and is going to command a big contract from somebody.
Yeah.
How bad does he want to stay in Pittsburgh, to me, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to finish your career there? Simple as that. I mean, because that's a team that's won 5 games. They've lost a ton in OT and shootouts, but they've won 5 games and they're on the outside looking in right now. I'm concerned about Pittsburgh. They're always there at the end.
Yeah.
Man, 5-on-5, another team that's just getting killed 5-on-5. Like
they had 100 shots last night against Dustin Tokarski. Dustin was outstanding last night for the Sabres, but couldn't get it done.
No, and what you say about their prospects, they haven't had the high-end draft picks.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that Pittsburgh's done a great job with their free agent signings and with their depth picks. They do continue to backfill their roster with players from their own system. They've done a great job of that, but they haven't had the top end, like, you don't want to say generational, but like, look at all these teams that are pulling players out of the top 10 of the draft that are producing right away.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, look at Detroit with Sider and Raymond, and just go down the list of these players.
Anaheim, and it's true.
How long can you play ball without having those? You know, they're going to be at a crossroads here in a year or two. I mean, probably at the end of this year. I think it might even be the beginning of it. It's a great point, Scott.
So you and I talked about Mario Lemieux, and I certainly, like, I don't know that I literally for years I would send Tom McMillan and Jen Bolano, the PR staff there. Tom McMillan's retired now, and every year I would, think like Mario would like to sit down, have a chat. They're like, no, he's not doing that. But I do remember back in 2008 when they went to the final for the first time since 92, when they won the cup. 92, right? Yes, 92. And we've been asking Mario to, come out and, talk. What's it mean? And, he was the captain the last time when they were final. And he was like, no, I'm not doing it. It's about the players. I'm not talking. And I was at ESPN, and maybe I was in a bad mood, whatever. Anyway, I wrote a column scorching Mario Lemieux. Basically, all he cared about was the money. He didn't care about the team, blah, blah, blah. And I spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh, but people were not happy. But I do remember the next year when they went back to the final, I was at a morning skate or something, and I got an email from, and I think it was Tom McMillan, the head of communications, veteran guy, just Hall of Fame guys in my mind. He sends me a note. He goes, "Oh, by the way, Mario suggests that you come to this press briefing at 2 this afternoon because he thought you'd want to be there." And anyway, he came out and he talked about how important it was for him and why he hadn't spoken. And we would run into each other at Pittsburgh quite often. And he was always, he was always very cordial. "Hey, how are you?" We chat, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm with you. He'll never, I hope his presence is what he wants it to be with that team because he's earned that. So anyway.
Yeah, that's where he should be, man. You gave him the screws and he came back. But it's funny, like some guys will come back at you hot. Or they'll do it like in a really vindictive way. Yeah, and I think that says a lot, though, that he said, "Hey, just show up to this and let's talk about it." That's cool. And how's your relationship? I mean, I can't imagine that you guys are talking on the weekly basis, but how is your relationship now?
Oh, well, we don't have one really. But
good. Okay, that's.
But I don't want to overstate. I'm never going to overstate it. But he certainly, and during a time when I spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh. During, both that playoff run and then really pretty much every year I was there for the playoffs.
Right.
And we would often run into each other and we would have a moment. It's like, sure. Again, I'm not overstating it. But
hey, I real quick here, though, you said you spent all that time in Pittsburgh. Don't you have a favorite hole in the wall there?
Of course, it's one of the favorite. Someday we'll just do an entire episode on dive bars I have known. But there is the greatest dive bar on the circuit is right across the street there, and it's called Shell's Cafe. So some night you and I will get there, maybe. Although we better hurry if the Penguins are going to be in the playoffs. But anyway, that's
what makes it so. Give me a quick synopsis. What makes it so special?
It became the writer's bar, and it's very earthy and it suits the personality of most of the writers that I know. And you know what? Over the years, they've treated us so well there, and it just became, we're creatures of habit. I don't think we're all that different from players, right? I mean, when you went on the road, and maybe it's different for you. You played with lots of different organizations, but when you went to a city, you don't go to the same place, right? I mean, yeah. For us, it was, in fact, recently, not to prolong the discussion of Shell's Cafe, the Leafs were in Pittsburgh and got a text and a phone call, might have even got a video, because post-game, the Toronto writers were in there and they wanted to share that they were at Shell's. So there you go.
That's perfect. Sounds like it has sticky floors. That's the way it should be.
Oh, yeah. No, it definitely does. So. All right, we're just about there. What else? You want a parting shot, a team or something you're thinking about? You want to watch next week or in between now and when we chat again? The floor is yours.
Well, I mean, can Troy Terry keep this going? Wow! Like I look at Anaheim and I look at that Pacific Division and I'm looking and I'm just thinking, this is amazing. I mean, we're talking about Battle Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary. We can't sleep on Anaheim.
8 straight, I think now. And yeah. Ryan Getzlaf here, I promised to give you the last word. Now I'm butting in again, but Ryan Getzlaf, 1,000 points, Hall of Fame guy for you?
He's gonna be right at the cusp. I don't know if Getzlaf's gonna make it, but I think there's gravity to being the face of a franchise and being a captain, a longtime captain of a franchise. If Ryan Getzlaf doesn't make it into the Hall of Fame, he's going to be perennially one of those guys that's discussed as why isn't he in, or what did it take more for him to get that? So he's going to be a bubble guy. I wouldn't call him a lock. I think there's definitely a strong argument for him to be included.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and look. 2 Olympic golds, maybe.
I think you would have been
10 and 14. I think.
Yeah, 10 for sure. So I mean, there's pedigree there, 100%.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And listen, we talked about it last week with Bob Murray being forced to resign, and hope he gets the help that he needs moving forward. But for a team that's gone through, some tumultuous times off the ice, they are, to me. They might be the surprise of this season, and good for, Dallas Eakins, and they are, man, they're right in it. They got lots going on there.
How about this? Maybe the culture's changed for the better. The tumultuous times have made things better.
Yeah.
Maybe the players feel free now. I mean, if they're receiving angry calls and texts and conversations from your GM, that's not an easy work environment.
Truth.
That team might take off purely based on the fact that they're having fun. They're not scared of their own shadow any longer.
Yeah.
That might be playing into this.
Might be.
Could be.
All right, brother. That was outstanding. I keep looking at the clock and, we'd just go perennial or perpetually.
Yeah,
but
we don't want to bore everybody.
Well,
people have things to do.
It would only be self-indulgent if we just went for 3 hours. And plus right. Poor Liam, up early in Edmonton. I'm sure he has other things to do. But next week, we'll reconvene. We'll do it all again. But fine work, as always, by you.
And you, Scott. We're going to come back hot next week with plenty more to talk about. Damn straight.
Thanks for listening to the Suitcase and the Scribe, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts and delivered by DoorDash. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.